In the Bible, the prophet Elisha is definitely one of the good guys. He gets messages from God, performs miracles for God, and tries to get the people of Israel to follow God. But there's one story about Elisha that seems a little off. In this story, Elisha is on his way to the town of Bethel when a bunch of boys start following him and mocking him. "Go up, you bald head," they say. Now these days, being bald is no big deal. Lots of people shave their heads on purpose, actually. But back then, baldness was associated with leprosy, so it was looked at as a pretty bad thing. Calling someone bald was a significant insult. So Elisha turned on the boys and cursed them. And when he did, 2 bears came out of the woods and attacked, mauling 42 of the boys. Yes, indeed, 42 children mauled by bears for calling Elisha a bald head. Nice, huh? And if you don't believe it, you can check it out. 2 Kings 2, 23-24. As you might imagine, this story is not a favorite for church services. Yes, there's a message there, but it's hardly one that justifies mauling children. It's also been a tough one for people trying to explain and interpret the Bible. Typically, commentators will say that these were adult men, not children, and that they were a pretty nasty group, sort of biblical soccer hooligans. They were mocking a prophet, and a little ursine violence was justified. But that's a bit of a stretch based on the original language. And besides, what about turning the other cheek? Or, say, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me." It's just a little hard to see the holiness here. But what if the story is more symbolic? What if Elisha stands for something spiritual? What if his hair does too, and the boys and the bears? What if the message is something a whole lot deeper? You can find that kind of explanation in the work of an 18th century thinker named Emanuel Swedenborg. According to Swedenborg, Elisha represents God himself, as we can come to know him through the Bible. Hair represents the outermost layer of something, which makes sense, since our hair is the outermost part of our bodies. Elisha's hair, then, represents the outermost layer of God in the Bible, or, to put it simply, the stories of the Bible themselves. The boys here represent intelligence and logic, which are great, but can be used for bad things. That kind of makes sense, too. We all know how intelligent and logical kids can sound when they're trying to get what they want. "Dad, if you don't get me the Videotron K2000 Cyborg game system, I'll have to go to my friends' houses and play theirs. And someone might have drugs, and someone might bring a gun, and you really need to get me this or my life will be ruined." If you haven't heard that kind of thing as a parent, you're probably still doing it as a kid. That brings us to the bears. They represent the power that stories in the Bible have, even when people don't understand them. That's a tricky concept, but basically it means that the stories of the Bible, because they are from God and actually kind of are God, have a special power to set our minds in order, even when we don't understand them on the surface. Finally, there's the number 42. We're told that represents blasphemy, which is the act of stripping all the holiness away from something. Put it all together, and what do we have? We have a picture of people using logic and intelligence, represented by the boys, to attack the idea that God is actually there inside the stories of the Bible. By saying Elisha is bald, they're saying that the stories represented by his hair have nothing to do with God represented by Elisha. And what happens to these people? Basically, they get smashed by the power of the Bible, the bears, without even knowing it's happening. Their logic and intelligence get brought down to keep them from doing actual damage in their attempts to blaspheme. That might sound harsh, but think about it. Do you know anyone who attacks other people's ideas and just keeps on attacking no matter what? I'll bet you do, and I'll bet it's not someone you really like being around. They tend to stop making sense long before they stop talking. That's what people become when they spend too much time attacking holy things without thinking about what they might really mean. If you don't want to be like that, then here's a tip. Show some respect for Elisha, and definitely don't call him bald.